And Sam, something we've talked often about, I know Ariel Lowen, we talked about it, then like Rich Froning also discussed it with him, is Ariel had kind of an awakening to what you just said about like thinking that more was always more. She had a daughter, was only able to train for like an hour a day, was doing just the class at her local CrossFit gym, and realized through that, although shorter time frame, she approached that with like an extreme intensity, and she actually got fitter from that, whereas before she was spending 4 or 5 hours a day. So how did that journey throughout your career? And then Rich was kind of the opposite end of that example, where he was the volume guy, like just doing insane amounts. So how did your journey, it sounds like at some point you maybe recognized, I mean, the fact that you were working nights is absolutely insane as well, to think about training that hard then working nights. But what was kind of the arc for you throughout your career of like maybe thinking more is more and just training yourself into the ground, and then eventually taking a step back and obviously still bringing an intensity to training, but maybe doing a little less than you previously had?
Yeah, I think like 2014, not making it to the games, I like thought the only answer was kind of killing myself in training. I basically entered every off-season competition that I could do. I had a killer of a season outside of like not making the games, but then roll around 2015 when the Open's about to start, the week before the Open, I had a herniated and 2 bulging discs in my back. And then just before regionals that year, I broke my foot. I managed to still qualify for the games, still compete at the games. And then 2016, before the games, I tore my labrum, bicep tendon. And so I competed at the games in 2016 with a torn labrum. And that's when I was like, something's like, I thought I was going to have to retire in 2016. I was like, I've just spent 2 full seasons where I've just been injured the whole time, still being able to just compete, but not being able to compete at full capacity because I'm carrying these injuries. So I had to have shoulder surgery in 2016. And then the decision to, do I want to still compete? Is my body able to still compete? And that's when I started working with my coach that I'm still with now, and just looking at volume and how can we do things differently and kind of more like sustainably.
Yeah. And did you like it sounds like the coach, obviously that was a huge catalyst for you kind of making that change. Were there other modalities that you started integrate? I mean, I see the sauna behind you, but throughout your career, did you start to recognize the different things, whether it was sleep or obviously nutrition and sleep are the ones always talked about, but did you start integrating other things that kind of helped on the recovery side as well?
I've always been a big component like for sleep. Obviously working nights definitely didn't help. But then once I wasn't working as a firefighter, I've always like been big on getting enough sleep and eating right. I think the main thing was just like the one condition that my coach made. He said, I would love to get you back to like full fitness and competing after surgery. He's like, but I'll only do it on one condition. And I'm like, what? He's like, I control everything. He's like, you don't do any stuff on your own. You don't go doing extra stuff. You don't go doing stuff on the side. It's like, what I write is what you do. And so that was like pretty hard for me because I'd done a lot of my own programming and kind of like picking and choosing, and I would work with a few different coaches. Like I'd get my Olympic lifting from one coach, my gymnastics from another, powerlifting from another, and then I'd make up my own conditioning, make up my own like cardio pieces and piece things together. Another example kind of like of another Rich, where it was like the more volume, the better. It's like, I'm picking this, I'm picking that, and oh, I'm not doing anything here. I'll put something else in. And he's like, no more of that. He's like, what I write, you do. So it was definitely hard for me to like accept that. But I was like, I will try.
And do you find, I think Patrick Vellner was kind of on the opposite end, where he obviously is very disciplined in his training, but as far as like even his diet and recovery and like, I think he referenced watching TV, like he needs that flexibility built in, or he feels kind of trapped by like just the like super, super disciplined approach. Where do you kind of sit on that spectrum? Do you thrive when things are very, very dialed in and you're able to just execute, or do you need to have some kind of flexibility in order to feel at ease?
No, I love routine. I love like things in order. And it's one thing that Nicole like makes fun of me sometimes. She's like, God, you're such a robot. I'm like, yeah, but it's so much easier. I don't have to make any decisions. It's like, that's just what I do.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting the spectrum of that and kind of just how personality plays such an influence on kind of where you fit in that.